Last week in Michigan politics, it was election night in Michigan. With the unofficial results from key races now in, who emerged on top, what the results could tell us, and where the candidates are already going from here. Plus, a West Michigan City Council has halted negotiations on issues key to a controversial local data center proposal. What city officials had to say. And new data out from state departments by order of the governor could be shedding new light on Michigan's economic situation amid federal trade tariffs. What they say they found. I'm Josh Alburtus, and this is your 13 on your side rundown. On the heels of Tuesday's all-important primary elections, the stage is set for a number of political showdowns in November, including one that could decide control of the U.S. Senate. Former Wayne County health official Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, who was widely seen as the more progressive candidate in the Democratic primary for our open U.S. Senate seat, officially declared victory over his primary opponent, Congresswoman Haley Stevens. The Associated Press has projected El-Sayed as the winner, as other official results showed him with a margin of less than 15,000 votes out of over 1.5 million that were counted. Now he is expected to face former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers, who ran unopposed in the GOP primary. El-Sayed addressed supporters Wednesday morning and laid out what's next for his campaign. 13 on your side's Nick Nelson starts us off now from Detroit.
After running close but slightly ahead throughout the night on Tuesday night, Abdul El-Sayed is officially the Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate. Now, we've learned that El-Sayed's opponent in this primary race, Representative Haley Stevens, has conceded and offered her endorsement to her former opponent. It was a bitter contest at times between the two. In his victory speech this morning, he repeated a call for unity among Democrats going into the general election against Republican candidate Mike Rogers. He also says he'd like to bring in new voters into the fold headed into November, directly taking on his new opponent, Rogers.
If you're willing to go and travel your state and have the conversations in rooms big and small, starting in moments when people aren't even paying attention to an election, but are paying attention to the price of gas and the price of groceries and the price of housing and the price of healthcare, that you can build a conversation that builds into a movement that defeats Goliath. Mike Rogers is a guy who, believe it or not, went back to Florida so he could lick every single boot Donald Trump owns to beg for his endorsement. I'm so sorry. If you want a senator who's going to lick some boots, fine, go vote for Mike Rogers. But if you want a senator who's going to stand up to Donald Trump, then you've got your option right here.
And in his speech, El-Sayed challenged Rogers to 5 debates ahead of the November 3rd general election. In Detroit, Nick Nelson, 13 on your side.
As the numbers came in, El-Sayed's lead got smaller, and the race was too close to call until the next morning. We break down the numbers and details on the change that led to that outcome. We got 11th hour numbers out of counties that emerged as central to these results since last night. In particular, we got late results bringing up the rear out of both Oakland County, this large pot of votes up here, and just to the south in Wayne County, the other very large pot of votes there. Important counties as this race shaped up, both in which Congresswoman Haley Stevens, who was seen as the more moderate persona in the race compared to El-Sayed's more progressive persona, ended up leading. She did there. Oakland County is really Stevens' territory. That is where her congressional district is centered. That, along with the similar Democratic fortress to the south in Wayne County and its city of Detroit, were the biggest pots of votes here. This had been an incredibly tight race overall from the start to the finish, ending in just a 1-point difference in these unofficial results between the candidates. But Stevens' leads in those key counties was just not enough, these unofficial results suggest, to overcome El-Sayed's advantages in critical counties like just to the west of there in Washtenaw County, home to the University of Michigan and Ann Arbor, a potentially younger voter base, high share of college-educated voters, but without Stevens' incumbency advantage, where El-Sayed was expected to do well if he wanted a good statewide showing. But his largest margin of victory actually came in Grand Rapids, Kent County on the west side, home to Grand Rapids that has transformed in recent cycles into somewhat of a Democratic haven in West Michigan. El-Sayed was able to make up ground over time, some of it in Wayne County, cutting cut into her lead there, but with how thin this statewide margin is and his loss in key counties like Wayne and Muskegon on the western lakeshore, that could be signaling the El Sayed campaign may be in for a lot of work ahead to consolidate the Democratic base in a state and in areas where you'll need every single vote you can get to compete in November. And meanwhile, Rogers issued a statement shortly after El Sayed's victory speech, describing El Sayed as, quote, an extremist and just another liberal. Rogers went on to say El Sayed is leading a movement grounded in ideological fanaticism. He added, quote, his agenda would make our communities less safe and our state less affordable. Rogers ran for U.S. Senate in 2024, narrowly losing to current Democratic Senator Elissa Slotkin. The nominees for Michigan governor are planning their campaigns for the November election now. Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson easily defeated Genesee County Sheriff Christopher Swanson for the Democratic nomination. U.S. Representative John James beat businessman Perry Johnson for the Republican nomination. Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer cannot run for another term due to term limits. Other races around the state were decided Wednesday. In Michigan's 4th congressional district, the GOP incumbent Representative Bill Huizenga is now expected to face Democratic State Senator Sean McCann in November. In the 3rd congressional district, former TV meteorologist Terry DeBoer is expected to face off against Democratic incumbent Hillary Scholten. And alongside El Sayed's statewide victory, progressives also notched apparent wins in congressional primaries. In the Democratic primary for the 13th U.S. House District in Detroit, State Representative Donovan McKinney was projected to have ousted incumbent Congressman Sri Tanadar. And in the 7th District in mid-Michigan, including areas like Lansing, which is seen as one of the most hotly contested seats come November, local activist Will Lawrence was expected to succeed in the Democratic primary. He'll go on to face Republican Congressman Tom Barrett, who flipped the seat just 2 years ago, as Democrat Elissa Slotkin left the seat to run for U.S. Senate. And let's not forget the fact that our entire state legislature, currently divided between a narrow House GOP majority and an even slimmer Democratic Senate majority, will be up for grabs in November. And some local races on Tuesday featured big names. In the 82nd State House District, largely encompassing Grand Rapids South Side, incumbent Representative Christian Grant handily defeated Kent County Commissioner Robert Womack in unofficial results in that Democratic primary. Also in Kent County, unofficial results had East Grand Rapids City Commissioner Abby Groff Blazak defeating State Representative Phil Skaggs in the Democratic primary to replace Senator Winnie Brinks in the 29th District. And in Ottawa County, as well as parts of Muskegon County and Northwest Kent County, Ottawa Impact co-founder and former County Commission Chair Joe Moss was expected to win the Republican primary for the 89th State House District. Several West Michigan communities also voted on a number of millage proposals. In Kent County, the Ada Township Parks millage passed with 54.5% of voters in favor. Voters also approved a sinking fund millage for Grand Rapids Public Schools. And in Muskegon County, voters turned down the community college millage by just over 1,000 votes. In Ottawa County, residents voted to continue the mental health millage there. 13 on your side's Lauren Baker heard from one county leader on why that leader felt the millage was important.
Voters in Ottawa County have made their voice heard on mental health.
It's important because mental health doesn't discriminate. It impacts everyone.
The community mental health millage passed in the August 4th primaries with 64% of voters supporting it. Chelsea Clark, the Ottawa County Mental Health Board's Director of Community Programs, says this millage was first passed 10 years ago and has helped more than 21,000 people.
That doesn't count the families of those people or the friends and really the staff that are working at these organizations. And so the millage has really stretched throughout the community.
The millage helps fund programs focused on mental health, substance abuse, and more by matching other grants.
For example, just about $5,000 of millage dollars contributes about $1 million towards our permanent supportive housing program that keeps folks housed.
And for the next 10 years, Clark says this millage will continue to provide those who need the help the most.
You can find the results of more millage proposals along with a range of election results on our website, 13onyourside.com/elections. Candidates and parties are wasting no time, it seems, following the primaries to project a message of unity as they hope to rally their voters ahead of November. Details from the next step of the campaign trail, as well as expert analysis on Tuesday's results. That's all coming up after the break. Stick with us. Less than 90 days now till the November election. Following the primaries on Tuesday, the two Republicans now expected to represent the party in the key races for governor and our open U.S. Senate seat spoke Thursday to Kent County Republicans to look ahead. 13 on Your Side's Nick Nelson was at that event and has details.
Several candidates made an appearance at what was called a unity rally at Kent GOP headquarters as campaigning for the general election begins. They were joined by the two men who will be at the top of the Republican ticket in November, gubernatorial nominee John James and U.S. Senate nominee Mike Rogers. James is taking on Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, and Rogers taking on progressive candidate Abdul El-Sayed. Both GOP candidates have already publicly taken aim at their new opponents, with Rogers Thursday doubling down on his assertion that El-Sayed is an extremist.
I never believed for 1 minute as a guy that served in the military and served as a special agent with the FBI, arresting gangsters and drug dealers and human traffickers, that at one point I'd be running against somebody who believes that America deserved 9/11.
While El-Sayed has campaigned with Twitch streamer Hassan Piker, who said America deserved 9/11 in 2019, El-Sayed himself has never been on record saying that. James says he believes it's important for Republicans to focus on defeating Democrats across the state in November.
We're going to be pushing back against socialism. We're going to be talking about the things that people really care about. Increasing affordability in the state of Michigan, increasing public safety in the state of Michigan, and fixing our education in the state of Michigan.
With gas prices over $4.20 on average in Michigan, James says he believes in what he calls common sense solutions to bringing costs down while maintaining the state shouldn't overregulate.
We're going to have common sense with our regulations. We all want clean air and clean water, but Michigan's paying some of the highest energy rates in the entire Midwest because of bad policy in Michigan.
Michigan's Democratic Party is also working to unite its members leading up to the November general election, especially in the wake of that hotly contested Senate primary with a lot of negative messaging flung over the last number of months. A unity rally in Detroit was expected on Friday to feature Democratic nominee for governor Jocelyn Benson, U.S. Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed, as well as Washtenaw County Prosecutor Ellie Savitt and Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist, whom the Michigan Democratic Party have endorsed for State Attorney General and Secretary of State, respectively. The party will officially nominate candidates for those two offices among select others through a convention later this month. They were expected to talk about what's at stake in the upcoming election and their campaign goals. Now, aside from how Tuesday went statistically, what exactly might we glean from those results? 13 on Your Side's Juliet Dragas sat down with one local political expert earlier this week to get some insight.
Calvin University professor Doug Copeman joins us now once again after last night, looking ahead to the fall. Let's talk about that victory for El-Sayed last night over Hillary Stevens, and it was a really small margin of 15,000 votes.
15,000 votes, very close, not called until late this morning.
Yeah, which we knew that was going to happen.
Right, we figured it was going to happen, and really Wayne County was the place where it was all decided. It will be very interesting because the state Democratic Party is really split, and there has to be a unity. There has to be coming together, and the possibility of that, I think it's complicated a little bit by the National Democratic Party, and people are already lining up about what's the best strategy for president in 2028. I think that the danger for El-Sayed is to get caught up in this national debate within the party and forcing him to do some things that he might not otherwise do if he just wanted to win.
And we're looking at video, you know, one of the things he said in his speech last night before he even knew he won was that you have to mend fences. And same with Stevens, she said the same thing, that they're going to need to work together to unite the Democratic Party. Can they do that?
Yeah, I think they do want to mend fences, and he does want to win, and I think Michigan Democrats want to win the U.S. Senate seat in Michigan. I would have to say Republicans feel better today than they did 2 days ago with having El-Sayed rather than Stevens, and a couple of other races they feel better about. So it'll be really interesting developments in the next 90 days.
Because Republicans think that they have a better chance of winning with Mike Rogers against El-Sayed.
Yes, I think Republicans think if this if El Sayed is sort of the symbol of the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, Michigan is a swing state. Typically, the voters in the middle decide things. And so if it seems there's an extremist running or two extremists running, that'll make it very difficult to have the traditional Michigan coalition of the people in the middle making the decision.
Let's talk about Kent County and the progressive Democrat who seemed to resonate with voters here. He did pretty well.
He did. I mean, counties with well-educated people with a lot of higher education, a lot of colleges and universities, and Kent County is now one of those. And El Sayed did well with that, and that was characteristic throughout the state.
And Stevens was the moderate, did better in the rural areas as well. Okay, very quickly, let's talk about the congressional race between Democrat Hillary Scholten and Terry DeBoer, Republican, now running against her. Democrats say she's being backed by DeVos money. What are we seeing in this campaign here?
Well, Kent County is super interesting. For a long time, it was sort of reliable Republican, moderate Republican. Then we had some upset there in the middle of that, and now it's a Democratic. It's not a safe Democratic seat. It's a lean Democratic seat, according to all the people at the national level who look at these things. I think that's about where it is. It's not impossible to see Terry DeBoer winning, but some very positive things have to happen to Republicans and a couple of negative things to Democrats and Congresswoman Scholten. But right now, it's a lean Democratic seat.
A lot of electoral politics to dive into this week, but government itself was still certainly on the move, including in one West Michigan city. Coming up, why the city council decided this week to halt negotiation on an issues central to a controversial data center project. That's next after the break. In local politics this week, it wasn't on the agenda, but the Lowell City Council made a decision on Monday that could affect a proposed Microsoft data center. In a surprise unanimous vote at the top of that city council meeting, they unanimously voted to indefinitely halt negotiations with Lowell Township and Microsoft on issues that are central to moving its data center project forward. The motion was brought forward by Mayor Mike DeVore.
The township boards are not acting in a transparent and good faith manner. The lack of a clear direction and actions and comments to that end has made it, in my opinion, impossible to continue further negotiations relating to amendments to the water and sewer agreements or any further discussion of future projects or cooperative development.
There you can hear the mayor taking direct verbal aim at the township. It's the township's planning commission that has been dealing with the proposal from the tech giant that's generated months-long controversy over the data center's potential water and energy usage and transparency from township officials. We spoke with Lowell City Manager Mike Burns after the meeting, who says the council believes there needs to be a pause in the process. We also spoke with a no data center advocate who said it was a win.
With basically, I think the angst of the community, and honestly, there have been a lot of concerns from the city council about issues being managed in Lowell Township. That the city council made a decision that they need to take a pause.
It gives us the reminder that we continue to speak up, we continue to be present, we continue to hold our line to the things that we believe in and the values of this community for public health and environment and so much more.
Now, the next Lowell Township Planning Commission meeting was expected this coming week. We're expected to hear more on this development then. The reports are in from state departments who were ordered by the governor earlier this year to find out how tariffs were impacting Michigan industries. What they say they found, that's next. The Federal Emergency Management Agency has again denied Michigan's request for federal disaster aid following the storms and tornadoes that struck southwest Michigan back in March. That's according to Governor Whitmer's office after the state appealed FEMA's denial in June of individual assistance for Branch, Cass, and St. Joseph counties and hazard mitigation statewide. While what her office said was a letter from FEMA officials earlier this week didn't go into much detail on FEMA's newest denial, the letter did read that, quote, the impact from this event is not of the severity and magnitude that warrants a major disaster declaration. In addition to widespread outages and property damage, a 12-year-old boy was killed along with 3 adults. Back in April, Governor Whitmer issued an executive order directing multiple state departments to report on how federal tariffs have impacted Michigan industries and consumers. And this week, departments released assessments. According to the governor's office, top lines from the departments found that consumer food prices had increased more than 3% from May 2025 to May 2026, with an over 6% increase for meat, poultry, and fish, as well as fruit and vegetable prices. The data also found, according to MDOT, that the Blue Water Bridge between Michigan and Canada had lost millions in toll revenue between tariffs and Canadian response. According to MSHDA, hundreds less affordable homes could be built. President Donald Trump defended his economic strategy in a trip to a General Motors facility in Milford in late July, asserting that his direction was rather encouraging domestic manufacturing. And that's the rundown for your week in Michigan politics. Be sure to keep up with all the top political stories of the day, both on air and online at 13onyourside.com.